If you would have told me when I was 10, 11, or 12, growing up here in Fort Collins, that I was gonna get married to a black woman, I probably wouldn't have thought too much about it, only because I didn't think about marriage all that much when I was young. But also I didn't think about who or what it was gonna look like. The only thing that I did think about, that me and Janae kind of joke about a little bit, is I envisioned kind of just white babies. That's the only thing that I really thought about as far as my future. Not that I was gonna be a dad or anything like that, but I assumed that I was going to be. Then I grew up, fast forward, and I married this lovely lady to my left here and live in a community that is predominantly white. So today we are going to have a real interview about the truth of Fort Collins, speaking specifically to diversity. What's up, everybody? This is Patrick Soukup with Soukup Real Estate Services in Fort Collins, Colorado. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing if what you're looking at doing is learning everything Fort Collins: eating, sleeping, playing, working, whatever. And if at the end of the video, if you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, comment, and engage. And as much as we like making these real estate videos, we like more working with buyers, sellers, and investors for all the real estate needs for everything here in Fort Collins. So give me a call, text, email, whatever it is. I've got your back when it comes to moving or relocating to Fort Collins. So without any further delay, let's jump into the truth about Fort Collins, specifically speaking about diversity. So Fort Collins is, according to the 2020 Census Bureau, 80% white, about 12% Hispanic, 1 to 2% black, and then 4% other races, and then it kind of goes from there on ethnicities and backgrounds. So I grew up in a community, I've been born and raised here in Fort Collins, and grew up in this area where the majority of people are white, and I never really thought about anything else about being a white male in Fort Collins, Colorado. Now, it's been fun being an athlete and on different sports teams and having friends of different races and religions, but never have been as open to the idea that there are people from different backgrounds and have different perspectives than when I met Janae 13 years ago and have been with her pretty much since. And today we're going to talk to you about something that is really near and dear to her heart and mine as well, now that we have 2 kids that are mixed, growing up in a city that is, again, predominantly white, and they are half black. And in previous videos, specifically my pros and cons video, there's been really some interesting comments. I've not been, super excited about some of the negative comments that I've received, and it's really disheartening to see some of that stuff, but it's in the world. Racism is in the world, and I had a hard time not responding to some of those comments, but I also kind of talked to different people, and the best way to deal with online trolls is by not engaging. So I didn't, and it's not that I don't take that very seriously, but it's that's the best way to squash it. So today, we're not gonna get my perspective, as I was going to originally do, the truth about diversity in Fort Collins, but get a black woman's perspective, who has been in Fort Collins now 17 years of her life, or just about 17 years, a little bit, or just about half her life. So she was born and raised in the military, and so grew up all over the United States, but has spent the majority of her life here. So I'm gonna be done talking mostly, and then kind of kick it off to my wife, Janae, and we'll start with, what brought you to Fort Collins?
First and foremost was a track scholarship. I went to CSU. They recruited me for long jump and sprinting, and that was kind of how I made my way here. What I was looking for in a school was, a home away from home. And honestly, when I got to CSU, I met the track team, some of the people that I would be around, the coaches and stuff like that. I kind of knew it was where I wanted to be. So that's what brought me here. And then since then, I kind of liked it. I really do enjoy Fort Collins. I love everything about it as of right now.
You looked at a few different areas. I know one was University of Nebraska, which doesn't have that much more Black people there, but I know also there was some others on your radar. What did you like most about Fort Collins, and maybe what do you like most about Fort Collins now?
Originally, like I said, it was about my teammates and the people that I was around. That was important to me. CSU is a really great school. I was kind of just hoping to find a home, people that I could relate to. And as an athlete, I was looking for other athletes that were in the same position as me. They were far away from home, they don't have family around. And so I wanted to build my own family, which is what I did. So originally that's what brought me here. What kept me here is, little did I know prior to coming out to CSU, is I like outdoor activities. I like being outside, I like hiking, I like playing at the lake, I like biking. So this community, this city has a lot of that to offer. And so I have been able to kind of live my life very athletically, so to speak, because I can be outdoors, I can run, I can jog, I can utilize all the trails, hike, whatever I want to do, and all of it's just fun to do. So doesn't really ever seem like it's a workout, but I mean, you get a good workout doing all these fun things out here. Yeah.
I know you kind of have to drag me out more times than not, which, when I get out there, I know I enjoy it and it's fun being out there with you. What would you say you like the least about Fort Collins?
100% the lack of diversity. I go out and I don't see a lot of people that look like me, not even a lot of brown people in general. It's kind of disheartening sometimes because you want to be around people who look like you, who you can relate to, people who remind you of family, of home, and I don't see that every day that I walk out. I don't have neighbors that look like me. I don't have that connection to the people here because we all have different backgrounds and ethnicities here, and it's hard to find people to communicate with and to connect with, because they don't look like me. They didn't grow up like I did. And granted, I did grow up in the military, and that is still a little bit different than a lot of other just Black communities or brown communities. But, it still would be nice to have a little more brown folks to talk to and be around.
Yeah, so, bringing the thunder is, what is it like being a Black woman in a predominantly white community?
In all honesty, you kind of stick out like a sore thumb, but the good part here in Fort Collins is that people are actually very accepting. I have had some run-ins with racism and discrimination, but not a ton. And in those instances, I've been able to and had the opportunity to correct people, and people have been pretty willing to understand where I'm coming from. Like, one of the things is they like to touch my hair. Most people don't look like what I look like. If you're like, can I touch your hair? No, I'm sorry, you can't touch my hair. And I wouldn't go up to you and touch your hair either. But just being able to tell people what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate, people are actually very receptive to that. And it's not always the case. There have been a few people who just didn't care, but for the most part, they are very, very much likely to accept what you are saying to them and maybe learn from you.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people who are moving to Fort Collins in northern Colorado who are, in mixed race couples, and that's definitely a question, is diversity here in Fort Collins, and what's my perception? And something that the phrase that I've been using is, we are ignorantly kind. And what I mean by that is, like, we're this community that has such a strong population of white people that we haven't been, especially the old heads, haven't been necessarily exposed to a lot of different backgrounds, ethnicities, and religions. And I would say, like, my family, for example, like, they'll say or do things, and it's not out of malice, but it's more out of misunderstanding and not knowing. And fortunately, Janae is comfortable in her skin and her, strength and character. And so when somebody says something or does something not out of, anger or malice, but out of ignorance, Janae is able to kind of come in, correct, and specifically in my family. Now, granted, I also could say that they better be relatively on their best behavior because they also know that she's married to me, but are open to correction and open to learning about different backgrounds and what's okay and what's not okay. But it does start with ignorance because maybe they just don't or haven't been excessively exposed to Black people or brown people or people of different religions. And so I think that's one thing that I've noticed is that, specifically being with you, is that fortunately there's not been a ton of racist interactions, but the times that you've had interesting interactions, you've had an opportunity to raise awareness. And from what I've been hearing, what I've understood is that people are relatively open to that.
Yeah, and then considering too, the community has a strong relationship with CSU, Colorado State University. So, we have a very educated population. We have people who understand, the very basis of human nature. Be kind to each other. Do unto others as you would do to yourself. So, the population, I think, in general, is just more willing, educated, and can understand some of the woes and differences that the Black people or the brown people have, and are much more open to understanding that.
One of the things that we talked about, and it was pretty contentious at a certain point in our relationship, was raising a family here and not necessarily having our kids see or be around other people that look like them in school and maybe not feel beautiful or be curious why, Sally's hair is straight and mine's curly. And I know that at one point was a really big consideration for you to leave Fort Collins. And I know together, you knew where I was coming from, but do you feel like Fort Collins is a place where you can raise your family? And I guess, do you feel like Fort Collins is a place that you can raise your family?
Absolutely. Besides the lack of diversity, it is, one of the best places to raise a child. I mean, the education, the school systems, the safety in the communities and the neighborhoods. It's just the brown part is really what it comes down to. And I don't think that's a deterrent in any way to not raising or staying in not raising our kids here or staying in Fort Collins. So even if I were to leave, I honestly don't know where I would go. I have no idea. I have lived a lot of places because I lived in the military, but this feels like home to me. This feels like a place where I can grow, and I have a lot of knowledge myself to be able to teach my kids what they need to know about brown, Black, red, blue, yellow, whatever it is that they need to know. So I'm not too concerned because I feel like it's our responsibility to teach our children what they need to know out there, what differences are, what really matters, what truly matters. And so as long as we, raise our children with good characteristics, it really doesn't matter whether you're predominantly white, predominantly Black. It would just be nice to have more brown and Black folks around.
Yeah. So, like I said, I have been working with quite a few folks that are moving in from out of the state that are in a mixed race relationship and considering Fort Collins. And if there was, that I've got a channel that's, obviously living in Fort Collins. I, live, breathe, eat, sleep Fort Collins. So if you were to tell a family that was moving into Fort Collins or give some advice or some insight of what it's like being a couple that is one white, black, brown, whatever that might be, but a mixed race couple, what would be some advice or some information that you might give that couple?
I think my piece of advice is you're probably going to stick out like a sore thumb, but you will feel pretty welcomed and safe. You're not going to, and as far as my personal experience, I've not run into a ton, especially as I've gotten older and have children, those sorts of things. I don't run into anything other than welcoming people. You know, they see me, they see my children, and, you know, they want to talk. It's a really friendly community. And so you're going to feel welcome. You're going to feel like, you know, you'll make friends, you know, based off of just you guys' personal characteristics. You guys click, whatever the case is. So I think you'll find what you need here for sure, in terms of, you know, feeling like you're gonna fit in because you don't look like everybody else. The great thing about Fort Collins is that it's close enough to Denver so that you can find the community that you may want to be around. There are other things like in the Black community, like I like theater and those sorts of things that Fort Collins doesn't have necessarily, but we have access to it. So we can go drive down 45 minutes to an hour and I can get kind of that side of what I'm looking for without any issue. So I have access to all the stuff that I really want to do if I need to, or if I want to. But otherwise, it's just the only thing is I don't look like everybody else around here.
Alrighty, so that's definitely an interesting conversation to have with people when they're coming in from out of state, is those types of questions and curiosities that, yes, I have my perspective as a white male 32-year-old here that has been born and raised, but I don't necessarily have the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of somebody who might go to a grocery store and not look like everybody else and potentially have eyeballs on them that they wouldn't otherwise if they were a white female or white male in Fort Collins. So, you know, these conversations we've had, and I have learned and grown a ton being with Janae, and super open to those conversations and her perspectives. But it's different when you are that person. So when I answer those questions for people coming in from out of state, I try my best. I honestly hope that I come off as neutral as possible, because the last thing that I'd want or care about is somebody to move into Fort Collins that wouldn't feel comfortable. And so it's definitely a conversation that you need to have, and you should have. And if it's not the right fit for you, that's, you know, totally 100% okay. But if you're open to the idea of a community that's predominantly white, but overwhelmingly welcoming, and eventually, per statistics, supposedly, we will see a significantly more diverse population in Colorado over time. You know, by 2050, it's supposed to be, currently it's about 20% in Colorado that are non-white, and by 2040 or 2050, it's supposed to be about 40%. So the community, you know, the world is more accepting of mixed race couples, and there's more mixed race babies, and people coming in, finding love in all the right places and following what their heart's telling them to do. So, you know, if you were to say any last words as far as moving to Fort Collins and being a Black person in this community, do you see it as something that you would do now again, or would you change your path?
I would do it again. Like I said, I really do love it here. I would not stay if I did not like it here. This man's good enough that he would at least try and compromise with me if I didn't really like it here because of the lack of diversity, but it really hasn't been a barrier for me in any way. I've been successful in my career. I've been successful in, you know, anything I've tried, all my endeavors without any issue. And so I kind of feel like this is a place for me, and it could be the place for you too. So.
All right. Well, I hope you guys took as much away from this as I did. And honestly, if you guys have any questions, you know, definitely always feel free to reach out, comment below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. You know, give it a thumbs up. And again, my name is Patrick Soukup with Soukup Real Estate Services here in Fort Collins. And as much as we like making these real estate videos, we do like working with buyers, sellers, and investors of real estate more. So this was the truth about Fort Collins, specifically speaking on diversity, coming from a perspective near and dear to my heart. And hopefully you guys took some good information from it. So thanks for watching, and thank you for being willing to be real. All right, until next time, guys, take care.